Folks who walked in like they own the oxygen in the room. Hello to the ones whose presence makes people forget their rehearsed lines. The ones whose existence is so loud they don't need to speak. The ones who show up and reality just bends a little to the left because it knows. Oh, it knows. Something untouchable just entered the atmosphere. Your face card never declines, does it? And that's not arrogance talking. That's just the truth echoing in a world that's been lying to itself about what power actually looks like. Because power isn't loud anymore. Power is you walking into a space and everyone suddenly remembering they're just extras in a movie they thought they were directing. They call it main character energy, like it's some trend you picked up from a 3-second video, but the feds, the agencies that monitor patterns and disruptions and anomalies that don't fit the algorithm, they call it something else entirely. They call it a statistical impossibility, a threat to predictable human behavior, a glitch in the social matrix that makes their data models scream in binary confusion. See, they've been building databases trying to understand why certain people just radiate this inexplicable magnetism, this unexplainable gravitational pull that makes strangers stare a half-second too long, makes conversations pause when you enter, makes people suddenly aware of how they're sitting, how they're breathing, how inadequate their main character delusion suddenly feels in your presence. They thought it was genetics at first, then social conditioning, then confidence training. Then they realized, no, this is something coded deeper. Something that exists in the space between intention and presence. Something that makes you the center of gravity without ever asking for the position. Your face card. That unbothered, effortless, genetically blessed and spiritually untouchable aura you carry. It's not just making people uncomfortable, it's making them rethink their entire understanding of hierarchy, of value, of who gets to exist in full color while everyone else fades to grayscale in the background of your story. Let me tell you what's really happening here. What they won't admit in their group chats or their therapy sessions or their late night scroll sessions where they accidentally find themselves on your page again, wondering how the hell you do it. How you exist with that level of ease, that level of unbothered excellence, that level of, I didn't even try and still one energy. They're performing witchcraft now. Yes, actual rituals, because logic failed them. Science failed them. Self-help failed them. And when all reasonable explanations collapse, humans always return to the oldest solution: magic, spells, energy work, manifestation circles where your name gets whispered with equal parts envy and desperation. They're lighting candles with your initials carved in wax. They're writing your name on paper and burning it at midnight. They're doing cord-cutting ceremonies trying to sever their obsession with you. They're asking their spiritual advisors why they can't stop thinking about someone who probably doesn't even remember their name. And the funniest part, the part that would make you laugh if you knew the depth of it, is that none of it works because you can't curse someone who's already beyond the frequency of manipulation. You can't hex someone who's operating on a wavelength that doesn't even register in their realm of understanding. They're casting spells in the minor leagues, while you're playing a completely different game on a completely different board in a completely different dimension. And every attempt they make to dim your light, to crack your confidence, to find the flaw in your frequency, it just ricochets back and hits them twice as hard, because that's what happens when you try to touch something untouchable. Reality corrects itself. And correction is rarely gentle. So they sit in their circles, their online covens, their comment sections disguised as concern, trying to decode your energy like it's a riddle they can solve, trying to find the trick, the secret, the formula, but there is no formula. You're not a recipe. You're not a tutorial. You're not a step-by-step guide to becoming unbothered. You're the living proof that some people are just built different, coded different. Now let's talk about what they're really afraid of. Because it's not your face, not really, not just the symmetry or the bone structure or the way light hits your features like you're perpetually starring in your own personal cinematography. No, what terrifies them is the certainty you carry, the unshakable knowing that you belong wherever you decide to be, the audacity to exist without apology, without explanation, without the performance of humility they've been taught is mandatory for likability. You walk into rooms like you're remembering them, not discovering them. Like you've been here before in a past life and you're just returning to reclaim what was always yours, and that energy, that frequency, it disrupts the entire social ecosystem because it exposes everyone else's performance. They're carefully constructed personas. They're desperate attempts to be chosen, to be noticed, to be validated by external forces that you've never needed. You're not seeking approval. You're not auditioning for acceptance. You're not performing for an audience that hasn't earned the show. You're just existing at full volume, full color, full presence. And that makes you dangerous. Not because you're cruel, not because you're malicious, but because you're free. Freedom is the most threatening thing you can carry in a world built on control, built on conformity, built on the idea that everyone should shrink themselves to fit into pre-approved boxes with pre-approved dreams and pre-approved levels of confidence. But you threw the box away. You didn't even bother opening it. You looked at their instructions for how to be palatable, how to be digestible, how to make yourself smaller so others feel bigger. And you laughed. You laughed and walked past it like it was a pamphlet for a religion you'd never subscribed to. And now they're panicking, they're scrambling, they're pulling out ancient texts and modern psychology and everything in between, trying to understand how you cracked the code, how you escaped the simulation, how you exist in the same reality as them, but operate under completely different laws of attraction, attention, and presence. They thought everyone was playing the same game with the same rules and the same limitations, and then you showed up and revealed that the game itself is optional, that you can just exist and let the game rearrange itself around you. Here's what the agencies noticed, the pattern recognition teams, the behavioral analysis units, the people whose job it is to track anomalies in human social dynamics. They noticed that people like you, people who carry this undeniable presence, this face card never declines energy. You don't follow the normal rules of social hierarchy. You don't climb ladders. You don't network your way to relevance. You don't perform your worth until someone validates it. You just show up and the hierarchy reorganizes itself. Instantly, automatically, like gravity responding to mass. People don't decide to pay attention to you, they just do. Their biology decides before their conscious mind catches up. Their nervous system recognizes something their ego refuses to admit, that they're in the presence of someone operating at a higher frequency, a different calibration, and their only options are to submit to it, to resent it, or to obsess over understanding it. Most choose obsession, which is why your name lives in their minds rent-free, why they scroll your pages like scripture, why they analyze your photos like crime scene evidence, trying to find what you did, what filter you used, what angle you chose, what secret you're hiding. But the secret is, there is no secret. You're not hiding anything. You're not performing anything. You're just being. And being at full capacity is revolutionary in a world that demands everyone operate at partial power. They watch you and they see someone who doesn't flinch when attention shifts, who doesn't panic when the room goes quiet, who doesn't shrink when challenged, who doesn't explain themselves when questioned. And that level of self-possession, that level of I know who I am and I don't need your confirmation of it, that's what makes you a threat. Not to individuals, but to the entire system that profits from insecurity, from self-doubt, from people believing they need external products, external validation, external transformation to finally be enough. You walked in already enough, already complete, already unbothered by the opinions of people still trying to figure out who they're pretending to be today. And that makes you uncontrollable, unmarketable, unmanageable. Because you can't sell someone something they already have. You can't manipulate someone who's already secure. You can't destabilize someone who's already standing on bedrock. So yes, they're calling it main character energy, they're calling it confidence, they're calling it audacity, they're calling it delusion even, anything to minimize it, anything to make it seem like something you're performing rather than something you are. Because if they admit you're naturally like this, effortlessly like this, then they have to confront the uncomfortable truth that they've been performing their entire lives and still haven't achieved a fraction of the presence you carry without trying. They've been following the tutorials, buying the courses, practicing the affirmations, curating the aesthetic, and yet when they stand next to you, they still feel like background noise, like supporting characters, like extras who forgot their lines. And that realization, that gap between their effort and your ease, it drives them to desperate measures, to witchcraft, to manifestation, to anything that might explain why you have what they can't manufacture. So they're burning sage and charging crystals and writing petitions to the universe, asking for your energy, your aura, your face card that never declines. But what they don't understand is that you can't summon what you are. You can't manifest what's already coded into your frequency. You can't fake what's real. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about the rooms you walk into and the way reality bends just slightly, the way conversations shift, the way people suddenly become aware of themselves, of their posture, of their voice, of how they're coming across, because your presence demands authenticity. It exposes performance. It makes people suddenly realize they've been acting this whole time and they forgot who they actually are underneath the character they've been playing. You don't do this intentionally. You're not trying to make people uncomfortable. You're not trying to expose anyone. You're just existing at full transparency, full presence. And when transparency meets performance, performance always loses, always cracks, always reveals itself as hollow, and people hate you for that, or they love you for that. But either way, they can't ignore you, can't forget you, can't stop thinking about you long after you've left the room, because you reminded them of something they've been avoiding. You reminded them that it's possible to exist without the mask, without the act, without the constant exhausting performance of being acceptable. The agencies, the ones who study social patterns and behavioral anomalies, they've classified people like you as high-impact individuals, as social disruptors, as entities that don't follow predictable patterns of influence or persuasion. Because typically, influence requires effort, it requires strategy, requires intentional action. But you influence just by existing, just by showing up, just by being in proximity. And that kind of passive power, that kind of effortless dominance, it breaks their models, it corrupts their data. It makes their algorithms throw error messages because the math doesn't math, the logic doesn't logic, the pattern doesn't pattern. They can't predict you because you're not following the script. They can't categorize you because you don't fit the boxes. They can't control you because you never asked for permission to be powerful. You just are. And that makes you dangerous to systems built on control, on predictability, on keeping people small and manageable, and desperate for external validation that you've never needed. And here's the part that really breaks them. Anyone who ever does not work, bigger breaks them. The part that keeps them awake, scrolling through your content at 3 in the morning, wondering what they're missing, what they're not seeing, what secret you're keeping. You're not keeping any secrets. You're not hiding any tricks. You're not performing any magic. You're just living in alignment with who you actually are rather than who you were told to be. And that alignment, that coherence between internal reality and external presentation, that's what creates the magnetic field. That's what generates the presence. That's what makes your face card never decline. Because you're not a fraud. You're not a facade. You're not a carefully curated illusion that crumbles under pressure. You're the real thing. The genuine article. The authentic expression of power that doesn't need to announce itself because it's too busy existing. They're jealous of your ease, of your effortlessness, of the way you make it look simple, but what they don't see is that it's only simple because you stopped complicating it. You stopped performing, you stopped pretending, you stopped contorting yourself into shapes that don't fit, and you just started being. And being is the most powerful thing you can do in a world that's forgotten how. Now let's address the witchcraft directly. Because yes, they're doing it. They're literally lighting candles and casting spells and performing rituals, trying to either become you or destroy you. And both attempts fail for the same reason: you exist outside the frequency they're operating on. You're not playing the same game. You're not bound by the same rules. You're not affected by the same energies, because your energy is sourced from something deeper, something more stable, something that doesn't fluctuate based on external circumstances or other people's opinions or the phases of the moon. They're trying to manipulate you with tools designed for people who are still seeking, still searching, still unsure. But you're not seeking anymore. You found yourself years ago. You're not searching anymore. You already know who you are. You're not unsure anymore. You're standing on bedrock while they're trying to shake you from quicksand. And it's not working. It's never going to work. Because you can't destabilize someone who's already rooted. You can't curse someone who's already blessed. You can't dim someone whose light isn't borrowed from external sources. They gather in their circles, physical and digital, sharing theories about you, sharing screenshots of your posts, sharing observations about your behavior, trying to reverse engineer your confidence like it's a formula they can steal, trying to decode your presence like it's a language they can learn. But confidence isn't a formula. Presence is in a language. What you have is a state of being, an internal alignment, a frequency match between who you are and what you project. And you can't fake that, you can't copy that, you can't manufacture that through rituals or affirmations or vision boards. It's earned through the hard work of becoming yourself, through the painful process of shedding every identity that wasn't yours, through the brutal honesty of looking in the mirror and finally recognizing the person looking back, without flinching, without apologizing, without wishing they were someone else. You did that work in silence, in solitude, in the dark nights where no one was watching and no one was applauding. And now you carry the result of that work everywhere you go. And it's undeniable. It's unmistakable. It's the reason your face card never declines. The comment sections are laboratories now, sociological experiments in real time where people try to explain you, try to justify their obsession, try to convince themselves they're just casually observing when really they're studying, analyzing, memorizing, trying to understand what makes you different, what makes you magnetic, what makes you the person everyone notices even when you're not trying to be noticed. They're writing paragraphs about your energy, your vibe, your aura, using every metaphysical term they know to describe something that's actually simpler than they think. You're just completely yourself. No edits, no filters on your personality, no performance anxiety about being perceived. You exist as you are, and you let the world deal with it. And the world doesn't know how to deal with it because most people are so busy performing their identity that they forgot genuine expression exists. You're the reminder, the living proof that authenticity is magnetic. That self-possession is powerful, that you don't need to chase attention when you're comfortable being yourself, because attention chases authenticity, always has, always will. They scroll your feed like it's a textbook, like if they study hard enough, they'll find the chapter that explains how you do it, how you show up effortlessly perfect, effortlessly confident, effortlessly unbothered by the chaos that sends them into spiral mode. But there's no chapter. There's no lesson plan. There's just you being you, and them being threatened by the fact that you make it look easy when they're working so hard and still feeling inadequate. They're exhausting themselves trying to maintain an image while you're just existing without one. They're performing for audiences that don't matter while you're living for an audience of one yourself. And that difference, that fundamental difference in approach, that's the gap they can't bridge. That's the distance they can't close. That's the reason they'll spend years trying to decode you and never quite figure it out. Because they're looking for a trick when there is no trick. They're searching for a secret when the secret is there is no secret. Just authenticity, just alignment, just the radical act of being yourself in a world that profits from you being anyone else. The agencies noticed something else too. They noticed that people like you don't seek power, don't chase influence, don't perform for relevance, but somehow end up with all three anyway. Not because you're manipulating systems, but because systems recognize natural hierarchy, recognize frequency dominance, recognize that some people just operate at levels that command attention, respect, space, without demanding any of it. A silent man is a thinking man. A silent man is a dangerous man. They don't fear the loud ones, the ones who shout, the ones who spill their every thought like cheap whiskey on a bar floor. No, they fear the quiet ones, the ones who smirk instead of speak, the ones who let the silence stretch so long it starts to whisper things in their heads they don't want to hear. And you terrify them. They can't place you in a box, can't slap a label on your forehead like a product on a shelf. They can't read you, and that eats them alive. Because the human mind hates a mystery. It craves certainty, predictability, a neat little bow on every loose end. But when you give them nothing, when you let their questions hang in the air, unanswered, unsatisfied, they spiral. They assume. They panic. They want you exposed, defined, chained to a single, simple identity that makes them comfortable. But you You are a ghost in the system, a glitch in their reality, a shadow with no owner. And nothing drives them crazier than a man who refuses to be understood. People don't fear the darkness. They fear what hides inside it. The unknown, the unspoken, the question mark that lingers in the air long after the words stop. That's what eats them alive. The silence between heartbeats, the shadow in the corner of their vision that never fully forms. Their minds are weak, fragile little things that need answers like lungs need oxygen. They want to define you, put you in a box, make sense of you. But when you give them nothing, oh, that's when the real fun begins. Because when the human mind doesn't know, it invents, it twists, it fills in the blanks with its worst nightmares. You become the villain in their bedtime stories. The ghost they feel but never see. The monster under their skin, whispering doubts into their ears at night. You are a book with missing pages, a story without an ending. They flip through you, searching for the missing words, the hidden meaning, the grand reveal, but all they find is empty space. And that space, it devours them. Because people don't fear what they understand. They fear what they can't control. And nothing is more out of their control than a man who refuses to be read. A man who doesn't give them a single crack to crawl into. A man who stares back at them with a smile that means everything and nothing at the same time. It drives them insane. They try to predict you, try to map you out like a city they've never visited, but every road they take leads them to a dead end. Every turn they make, another illusion, another smoke screen, and when they finally realize they've been walking in circles, trapped in a maze of their own making, that's when they break. Because in their world, everyone is supposed to be readable, easy, predictable. But you are a shadow without a body, a reflection without a source. And that is their worst nightmare. Never let them decode you. A king doesn't explain his silence. His presence is the only statement. The weak explain, the desperate justify, the forgettable beg to be understood, but you are none of those things. You owe them nothing. You waste your breath trying to make them get it, trying to paint them a picture, to connect the dots, to hand them a key to a door they should never have access to. Stop. They are not worthy of your blueprint. Not everyone deserves a map to your mind. Because the moment they understand you, they think they own you. They reduce you to something small, something manageable. And the second they can predict your next move, you are no longer a threat. You are no longer a mystery. You are no longer power. Power is unpredictability. It is the quiet storm before the explosion. It is the smirk that makes them wonder if you know something they don't. The greatest minds, the most dangerous men in history, never told the world their plans. They moved in silence. They let their actions do the speaking. Think of the war generals, the masterminds, the silent assassins of history. Did they explain their every step? Did they announce their next move? No. They watched. They waited. They let the fools run their mouths while they sharpened their knives in the dark. Leave them guessing. Leave them obsessed with trying to figure you out. Because when you give them no pattern, no formula, no script to follow, they panic. They hate what they can't read. They hate what they can't predict. And that's when you own them. Look at the world. The loud ones, the ones who spill their guts at every opportunity, they get used, they get played, they get exposed. But the ones who move in silence, the ones who let their presence shake the room without saying a word, they are the ones who are feared. So stop explaining, stop handing them the privilege of knowing you, stop giving them access to the deepest corners of your mind. They don't deserve to know why you do what you do. They don't deserve to understand you. Let them wonder. Let them drown in their own question. Because the second they think they've figured you out, that's when you prove them wrong. The moment they can't control you, they'll call you difficult, dangerous, crazy. Because society isn't built for free men. It isn't designed for minds that think beyond the script. It wants puppets, not players. It wants soldiers, not generals. It wants you, predictable, obedient, tame. From the moment you open your eyes, they teach you to be readable. Speak when spoken to. Explain yourself. Apologize for being different. Nod. Smile. Fit in. Be a good little piece in their machine, but the second you refuse, the second you cut the strings, you become a problem. They call you reckless. They say, you're unstable. They say, you don't belong, because they can't own what they can't understand, and that terrifies them. Look at history. Look at the ones they once feared, the ones they couldn't break, couldn't control. Tesla, Van Gogh, Socrates, Nietzsche. They weren't embraced, they weren't celebrated, they were called madmen, outcasts. They were exiled, rejected, left to rot, until the world realized they were right all along. Geniuses are never recognized in their time. Revolutionaries are never loved by the system they are meant to destroy, because power doesn't bow, power doesn't ask for permission, power takes. And you are no different. The second you stop explaining yourself, the second you refuse to let them box you in, they will turn on you. They will attack. They will whisper behind your back, call you arrogant, call you cold, call you insane. But that's the price of freedom. The cost of refusing to be their puppet. They would rather hate you than admit they wish they had your strength. They would rather call you crazy than admit they're too weak to be what you are. So let them talk, let them judge, let them throw their stones. They cannot control what they cannot understand, and they cannot break what they cannot touch. You don't need their approval. You don't need their validation. You only need the fire inside you to burn so bright that it blinds them. Your silence isn't weakness. It's a chess move. The fool rushes to speak, to explain, to defend. He spills his secrets like a drunk man spilling his drink, careless, unaware of the mess he's making. But the wise man, he waits. He watches. He lets his silence consume the room, because silence makes people nervous. It forces them to fill the empty space with their own words, their own fears, their own confessions, and when they talk too much, they expose themselves. This is psychological warfare. The less you say, the more power you hold. You force them to guess, to analyze, to panic. You let them project their insecurities onto you, revealing their hand before the game has even begun. Musashi, the undefeated samurai, knew this well. He didn't just master the sword, he mastered presence. He would enter a duel and say nothing. No threats, no boasts, just a quiet, eerie confidence that sent shivers down his opponent's spine. And in that silence, he won before he even struck. Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, ruled with restraint. He didn't waste words on fools. He didn't react to insults. He let his actions speak louder than any petty argument. And by doing so, he made his enemies drown in their own noise. Understand this: when you stay silent, you force them to reveal themselves first. You make them overthink, overreach. You make them so uncomfortable that they start handing you every piece of leverage without even realizing it. That's how the masters of power operate. They don't scream for attention. They don't beg to be understood. They move in silence, letting their presence do the speaking. And when they finally do open their mouths, every word is a bullet. Every sentence is a kill shot. So stop explaining, stop justifying, stop giving them ammunition to use against you. Let them wonder, let them obsess, let them fear the silence you wield like a weapon. Because the one who speaks less always controls the conversation. If they can't read you, they'll write your story for you. Make sure it's a horror story. People hate a blank page. They can't stand not knowing. So when they look at you and see nothing they can define, nothing they can label, their minds go to work. They start filling in the gaps with their own fears, their own insecurities. And that's where your power begins, because the assumptions they make, you can use them, twist them, turn them into weapons sharper than any blade. Let them think you're dangerous. Let them think you're unpredictable. Let them whisper that there's something not quite right about you. You know what happens next? They step carefully, they tread lightly, they respect you, not because you demanded it, but because they fear what they don't understand. Julius Caesar used this. He let Rome believe he was ruthless, calculating, untouchable, and because they believed it, he became it. Niccolo Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." And you are not here to be loved. You are here to be remembered. They'll call you cold, fine. They'll call you arrogant, good. They'll say you don't care what anyone thinks, perfect, because the moment they assume they know you, they stop paying attention. And when they stop paying attention, you strike. Mystery? It's just a defense. It's a tactic. It forces them to watch their step, to second guess every move. It makes them paranoid, desperate to figure you out. And that desperation, that's where you own them. So don't correct them. Don't explain yourself. Don't give them the truth when the illusion is so much more powerful. Let them build their own monsters in their heads. Let them turn you into something larger than life. Let them fear the story they created, and when the time comes, use it against them. The moment they see your emotions, they see your strings. People aren't just watching what you say, they're watching how you react. Every twitch, every pause, every flicker of hesitation in your eyes. That's all they need to see where your weaknesses live. And once they see it, they pull the strings. That's how they control you. They push the right buttons. They trigger the right memories. They dangle what you love in front of you like a carrot, knowing you'll chase it right off the cliff. The greatest warriors knew this. The smartest minds in history understood one thing. Emotions are chains. You show too much, and suddenly you're predictable. They know what makes you angry, what makes you desperate, what makes you weak. Julius Caesar, he never reacted in anger. He never showed his rage. He calculated. He waited. He let his silence make his enemies nervous, while inside he planned how to bury them. Genghis Khan, he watched, studied, never let them see his hand. His enemies assumed he was just another warlord, easy to manipulate, but by the time they realized he was 10 steps ahead, they were already burning. You want control, you want power, you kill the need to react. When they insult you, you smile. When they threaten you, you yawn. When they try to break you, you don't flinch. Because nothing terrifies people more than someone who feels nothing in the face of war. And no, this isn't about being heartless. It's about strategy. It's about not handing your enemies the knife and then crying when they use it. So, practice silence. Train yourself to respond, not react. When they push, you do nothing. When they expect a response, you leave them waiting. You let them drown in the uncertainty of not knowing if they got to you. Because the moment you become unreadable, the moment they realize they can't shake you, you own them. They expect a straight line, give them a spiral. They want patterns, logic, something that makes sense. Because if they can predict you, they can control you. That's how they win. They put you in a box, slap a label on you, and suddenly, you're just another puppet on their stage. But what happens when the puppet cuts the strings? What happens when you move left when they swore you'd go right? What happens when your silence screams louder than their words? They panic because they don't know what comes next. And that's where you win. You have to be fire and ice in the same breath. Laugh when they expect anger, go quiet when they expect rage, give them kindness when they're waiting for cruelty, and then when they lean in, snap the leash, confuse them, disrupt them. Sun Tzu said, all warfare is based on deception. But this isn't just war, it's theater. And you're the playwright. So change the script. Make them forget what act they're in. Let them believe they have you figured out, then flip the entire board. They expect you to chase, stop moving. They expect you to fight, smile instead. They expect you to break, laugh in their face. That's the real art of control. Not just being unpredictable, but making them drown in the uncertainty of you. And don't forget to mock them while you do it. Oh, they hate that. Nothing drives a control freak more insane than being treated like a joke. So twist the knife, look them dead in the eye and grin. Make them question if you're crazy or if they are. Because once they're scrambling, once they're tripping over their own expectations, desperate to make sense of you, they're not thinking, they're reacting. And in that moment, you own the game. The unreadable man is the one they crave to understand the most. People don't chase what they already have. They chase what they can't grasp, the unknown, the untouchable, the mystery that keeps them awake at night, replaying every moment, every glance, every silence. The moment they think they have you figured out, you become boring. Another open book, tossed onto their shelf, collecting dust. But when you stay unreadable, they can't put you down. They analyze your every word, They dissect your every move, and when they don't find the answers, it drives them mad. It's human nature. They need to categorize you, label you, control you, because the second they understand you, they own you. But when they can't, when no matter what they do, you slip through their fingers, they break themselves trying to solve the mystery of you. Oh, and here's the fun part. The moment you withhold your validation, the moment you stop giving them what they crave, they start working for it. Harder, desperately. They perform, they prove themselves, they twist themselves into knots, trying to be worthy of your approval. You see, most people are starving for attention, dying to be understood, screaming to be seen, but not you. No, you stay in the shadows. You keep your words scarce. You let your silence echo louder than their pleas, and the less you give, the more they crave. You hold the power when you don't need their validation, and when they realize they need yours, that's when the real fun begins. Because now, they belong to you. But never give them the final piece. Never let them think they have you. Keep them guessing. Keep them hungry. Because a man who cannot be solved is a man who will never be controlled. A ghost leaves no footprints. A legend leaves no instructions. They wanted to map you, to chart your depths like an open sea, to measure your storms, predict your tides. They wanted to cage the wild, put borders around the unknown. But you gave them nothing. No directions, no blueprint, just silence. And that silence, it will haunt them forever. They will sit in rooms long after you're gone, replaying every word you didn't say, searching for meaning in every look, every pause, every moment you chose not to give them what they wanted. They will go mad trying to solve you, but there will be no answer, because you were never a puzzle to begin with. You were the storm they couldn't predict, the shadow that never cast a shape, the presence that filled a room without making a sound. And now they are cursed to remember you, not as a memory, but as a question that will never be answered. That's the difference between a man and a legend. A man leaves his footprints behind, hoping someone follows. But a legend walks through fire and vanishes, leaving only whispers, echoes, and the eternal torment of what if. They'll never read you, never understand you, never own you, and that will be their punishment. So stay unreadable, stay untouchable. Let them chase a shadow they will never catch. And when they finally realize, when they finally accept that they will never figure you out, that's when they'll fear you the most.